good afternoon, everybody. Tim Berenga here with Worksaver Incorporated, and joining me today is Larry Hopper. And Larry's got a special celebration today. After 47 years of working here at Worksaver, he's looking to retire as of tomorrow. So Larry, appreciate all the time we've worked together, and kind of tell us, how were the early years when you first came here?
A challenge. Challenges at the very least. When I first walked in the door here, I swore I wouldn't be here 5 years because it was such a mess. It was just a stopping point, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't long. A year later, your dad was here, started making changes, and well, 47 years later, I'm still here.
Well, we appreciate all the changes and growing with us that has happened over the last 47 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes. I mean, hell, there's concrete here that I outdate. I mean, there was only 3 buildings here. Now there's like, what, 9?
Yeah, 10? I think we're up to 9, yep.
And my God, I can remember walking around this place, in the last couple of years thinking, this used to be farm field. This used to, and, I can remember doing inventory outside in the snow because we didn't have any place to put stuff inside. I remember Cliff sitting out there in his pickup truck, so he could keep his hands warm, so you write tags and things like that just kind of stick in your head.
So when you first came here, what was your first job, Larry?
My first job when I came here, I worked in the grinding department.
Okay.
I worked in the grinding department for about 3 months. Then I bid out of that and went into fab. Then it's not where I wanted to be. I really wanted to be in welding, but there wasn't an opening.
Mm-hmm.
So after about 6 months in fab, there was an opening in welding, and that's where I was for 15 years, 16 years, something like that, before I became a supervisor.
Okay. So when you started in 1978, do you remember what your wage was back then?
$1.97 an hour. I do remember.
Yep. Amazing how much things have changed in 47 years.
Boy, ain't it though. Of course, that $1.97 would take you a lot farther than even $10, now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, there were challenges. I told the wife, I says, it'll get better once I get into the welding shop. I'll make good money there. And I went to $3.67 an hour.
Wow. Yeah. For all the young people out there, they probably can't even imagine that.
Oh, God, no. Hell, you pay more than that for a dozen eggs now.
Yeah, that's no kidding. That's no kidding. So you're here about 15, 16 years, and then you started to move up into the management role. What'd you do then?
Well, the first challenge was Cliff gave me the reins of second shift.
Yeah.
After I worked around, I think he gave me 3 weeks to get ready, and then he just thrust me into second shift with a dozen people and said, here, have at it.
So is this 1993, 94?
92, I think.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. 92. So anyway, I started running the second shift, and the strange thing about second shift back then, it was seasonal because we weren't busy enough to run second shift all year round. As we grew, of course, you know where that went. But I would run the second shift probably March-ish all the way through September, October, and then over the winter we'd go to days.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was a challenge. There was times that I wish I was home with the wife and kids in the evenings, but I had things I had to do. So anyway, as it grew, then I was moved to days, and I'm not really sure. I think the first 2 years on days, I was just basically building fixtures and building prototypes, and I spent a lot of time out there in that parking lot building the first prototype Terramax.
Yep, I remember those, the big
remember
subsoilers. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'll never forget that. It was hot out there in July building the Terramax. But anyway, after we spent a couple years doing that and just learning how to put projects through the shop and everything, then I basically took over shape cutting. We got bigger into shape cutting. we had more than just a flame cutter. We got the plasma in '94. We ended up adding the laser a few years later. So,
that was a '01, wasn't it?
yeah, '01, yeah, 2001. And I was the ramrod behind shape cutting. Learned a lot. Early on, learned a lot. Danny Helt was my savior.
Yeah. Well, I remember that. So I graduated college in 2001 and joined Dad in December of that year. And you were always the one that kind of was very curious and embraced emerging technologies. And with the shape cutting side, I know you jumped into it and learned it and basically mastered it. And then shortly thereafter, I believe it was 2002, we purchased our first robot, and you were very instrumental in that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ended up going to Davenport with Tom, and we learned the programming and did, spent 3 days at Genesis learning that first robot.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, the first one was easy to learn. As technology advanced, that's where it became more of a challenge. Probably the one we call Ned 1 is actually that was the biggest step. When we went from the Genesis Versa all the way up to that Lincoln cell, that first one on a rail, that was a large step for us.
Mm-hmm.
Learning the programming and going to Cleveland and working with them on the design of that unit, that was a challenge. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. I really did. I'm glad we stayed with Lincoln. The programming language is so much easier. Rick would hate us if we went to them damn Bostronic robots,
Mm-hmm.
because the programming is so much more entailed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Lincoln's been a very good partner with us too. I mean, they have us out to Cleveland to train our employees to run the robots and to program the robots, and they've just been pretty good to support.
Oh, absolutely. That first trip out to Cleveland, I think I pretty much set the tone for our relationship. Whenever I told them, I said, if you guys can't do what I want, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
You have been known to be direct over the years.
I don't beat around the bush. No, that way you know where I stand. Heath, he did not think he could actually get a robot to weld while it was moving on the rail. He said, that can't happen. I said, well, it's a 6-axis. I don't see why it can't. So I was sitting in a conference room like this with him, and he said, no, that can't happen. And I just got up out of the chair and started to walk away. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go find somebody that can make that happen. And I walked out of the room. About an hour later, him and his cohort come and got me and says, we think we can make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got how many of them? 5 of them like that on a rail that you can weld with the...
6.
Yeah, 6 now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, we're up to 6.
Yeah, but now we have 6 of them where you can actually be moving that robot on the rail and welding at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And they swore to God it couldn't happen. But I haven't seen any royalties out of that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Going back to our first robot, we quickly learned that we had some opportunities there. What opportunities did we have?
Well, the biggest opportunity we had was our saw. Our saw was outdated. It wouldn't cut straight. One tube would be 59 3/4, the next one would be 59 1/2. And robots don't like that. They want to have some good hard stops and good continuous, good accurate parts. So that's when we got the AGM saw.
Mm-hmm.
That helped. Well, then we found out that the old plasma was starting to have issues too. So in '07, we got the Titan, which really helped a bunch. Trump laser, it had its own set of issues. I mean, what we did, buying a used laser to get into the business, yeah, we had to do what we had to do to get to that point. But looking back, hindsight's always 20/20. We should not have bought a used laser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It became a very expensive endeavor. But the one good thing about it is I learned a lot.
Yeah. I remember we had a lot of techs in here, and we also found out we didn't have clean enough power.
Uh-huh.
And what did we do there?
Well, when when we had the issues with power because we kept burning out transformers and everything in this laser, we had Illinois Power come in. At the time, it was Illinois Power, and they did a test on the input, and it was not clean power. It was not a problem with surges. It was a problem with brownouts. We'd have as much as a 40% drop. Lasers don't like that. They don't like anything more than a 5% variation, high or low. And well, they said they couldn't do anything about it. Their first summary, so to speak, really left it, kind of a up in the air type decision. So we did it ourselves. I think we had Siemens, if I remember correctly, came in and did our power analysis, and that's when we found out that the brownouts were a lot worse than Illinois Power was letting on. And well, then we bought this UPS system, uninterrupted power supply, and put the laser, the plasma, and a couple other machines on it to clean up the power. And knock on wood, it took care of a lot of problems. It saved us a lot of repair bills. It just paid for itself. That's
yes.
darn sure.
Yeah, it was Liebert that made that first system, and Vertiv owns them now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a great investment. It made the technology last a lot longer and work much better. But yeah, that Trump laser took a lot of hits because of the power.
Yeah.
Probably the resonator replacement was the biggest, and I know darn good and well because of the power. There's no doubt in my mind. But yeah, it's been an interesting adventure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so about 2004, that's when you kind of moved up to working with me and being the assistant plant manager and scheduler for the shop. And you and I worked together for 10 straight years doing that. And then in 2014, I went to the dark side and went to sales to learn that side of the business. And then you were promoted and ran the plant all the way up until last year.
Right. And, that had its own set of challenges. But the good thing is, while being the general foreman on days, working with Cliff, I was already doing a lot of that before I even got the promotion. I was doing a lot of the scheduling and fab and shape cutting and even some in welding already, so it was an easy transition. Probably the easiest one I've had.
Yeah. Well, I remember prior to 2008, we were running the shop on an old DOS database system that Orville Stokes had designed for us. And anyway, as you mentioned, our physical inventories were always in December, and half the time there was snow on the ground and had to find parts outside, and every tag was handwritten and hand entered. And a lot of times the parts were outside and we had brooms to sweep them off to see what they were.
Oh, that was a fun time.
Yeah. But in 2008, we invested and put in a new ERP system, and that kind of eliminated all that handwork.
A lot of it. It was, basically we went from 10,000 SKUs then to about 25,000 SKUs now?
I would say it'd be around there.
So we had to do something or we'd be buried now with that old DOS system. And basically that's what I programmed the Trump laser with. DOS programming. And I'll never forget whenever I first brought Harry into shape cutting and showed him how to program, do a nest for that laser. He sat there for 3 hours trying to figure out how to get all them tech tables correct in there. And he says, well, you're crazy. I don't know how to help you like this. I said, it's a challenge, man. You have to have fun doing it. So he got good at it after a while.
Yeah.
But the software he's got now makes it too easy for him, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason some of our machines got obsoleted. I mean, mechanically they ran fine, but the software and the electronics just outdated them.
Oh, absolutely. CNC operating equipment, basically the lifetime on CNC is 4 to 5 years. If you stretch it out any longer than that, you're going to pay for it. It's a problem. So we run into that every once in a while in the plasma today because it's getting so old. So, yeah, we've had to replace the computer once on it already. So, I mean, I can imagine if it happens again, how much that will cost.
Sure.
yeah, it's moving forward.
Well, thinking back over the last 47 years, what would you say has been the biggest change that you've seen in manufacturing?
Technology. I
Mhm.
mean, bottom line, technology. It's not, well, technology has been the biggest change, but the biggest challenge is people to operate that technology because there's very few people that really want to learn it.
Mhm.
And if you get a good operator, you better take care of
Mhm.
him.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, technology is the biggest thing, whether it be in the shape cutting, whether it be laser cutting, plasma cutting, robotic welding, programming the milling machines, or whatever. Technology has been the biggest advancement. I mean, we used to have an old tape machine up here that was the big dog when I started.
Mhm.
Bridgeports and that were just hand dials. I mean, it's
Well, my memory's right. When you first started working here, didn't we have close to 15 to 18 drill presses to put holes in plates
oh,
and tubes?
absolutely. This whole area where the new office is was the drill department.
Mhm.
Um, we had six drill operators back then, and God, what a mess! I've seen them stack up as many as 10 moldboards because at the time we were grilling the rear blade moldboards,
Mhm.
one hole at a time. We'd stack up 10 of them, clamp them down. They start drilling over here. By the time we got the other end, them moldboards doing this. Yeah, they wasn't very accurate.
Yeah. I said back in the day, plus or minus a half inch was a pretty close tolerance, wasn't it?
Well, there was a couple of the old guys that always said if it's in the black, it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a 1/4 inch either side of the inch mark. So
Yeah. And today, with all the automation, you couldn't even try to run that type of product through.
oh heck no. When we first started gang punching, unipunching,
Mhm.
and it was like, wow, how in the hell did we ever do this before?
Yeah.
And I know how, and it wasn't good.
Well, even take grinding. When you first started grinding, we didn't have any automated shot blast machines.
No.
Everything was done by hand with
Everything was hand ground.
a 7 1/4 inch grinder, wasn't it?
Well, before that, we had a big aluminum cased, air operated hand grinder that had like a 5-inch wheel on it.
Okay.
And that's what we would clean the moldboards with. And then finally we got, the flat disc, which was much easier to handle. And everything was hand trucked. The grinding area was up here by where the restroom is now.
Mhm.
And we'd grind a rear blade moldboard or a mount, put it on a 2-wheel cart and run it back to the paint room.
Yeah. Well, and painting used to be up here in the old days.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
up here. Then you have the dip line where the brake room is,
Yeah.
and then across the aisle is where the grinding area was and the hitch kit welding area, which is something else that's gone away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the changes over the years, most all of them have been for the better. It's logistically, it's easier to handle. It's easier to move things through the shop now than it's ever been.
Mhm.
We have more of a straight line manufacturing. But yeah, before it was just wherever there was a hole, put something in it.
Talking about material handling, I remember as a kid, a big semi when I was a kid was 40 feet, and they would back in the old dock, and then there would be an assembly line of workers hand loading those rear blades and stacking them on the ground.
Stack 100 mounts in the nose of the trailer, and then put 2 skids of moldboards in the back to keep them from sliding out.
Yeah. Yeah, all done by hand.
All
Yeah.
done by hand.
Yeah, it was a lot different back then.
Oh God, wasn't it though? And the moldboards, when we assembled the cutting edges on them, the work table was 2 55-gallon drums sitting side by side. That's that's what our assembly table was.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Well, and then I remember stories when you were welding that you were in the older buildings where the restroom is and the maintenance cage are now, and you had to constantly worry about catching the building on fire.
Oh yeah, because of low ceilings. I've caught it on fire several times.
Yeah.
And one time it was right next to the exhaust fan, so you couldn't even see it because it was drawing the smoke and the flames right straight out. Burnt the wiring up on the exhaust fan. Oh God, yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then the big main welding building, early days, no insulation in it.
I remember the old LP heaters, and we had the guys in the center because it was warmer in the center, and the LP heaters facing down. Yeah.
I can remember getting in here one morning, Ronnie Flitz and I forget there was a third guy. We all come in early because we had a big order for CB blades, and we were working on them moldboards. And to get warm because it was so cold in there, we built the fire in a 55-gallon drum. Well, Ronnie's chucking wood in this 55-gallon drum to stoke the fire, and all of a sudden the wood starts flying back out of the drum. It's like, what? And you look in there, and there's a possum laying there, like, and he's throwing the wood back off of it because he didn't want the fire on. But it was so cold in there that there was a couple winters like that back then, that you would have the nozzle dip sitting up on top of your welder, and it would freeze.
Okay.
And that's unheard of. That stuff does not freeze, but it was solid. You could clunk, clunk. You couldn't even get the gun to go down in it. It was a mess. Thank God for insulation.
Yeah. That was, what, mid-90s we did that, wasn't it? 97, 98?
Right in that area, I think it was 97.
Yeah, because we added another 20 or 30 feet on the south end.
Another 26 foot to the south. We put the insulation and the second shell on it. I'm pretty sure it was 97.
Okay. Yeah.
Boy, it made it so much nicer in there. That's when we moved the welders back out to the walls, and then you had more space in the bays because you only had one aisle instead of two.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was interesting back in the early days.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, another thing I remember as being a kid walking around this place is the old dip tank outside for the round bale feeders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember whenever your dad had me go over to Vandalia. I can't remember the guy's first name. Hall, Trial or Triple H or what? I can't even remember the name of the company. It was so damn long ago. But I went over there and basically brought the round bale feeders and the F1511 and the F3000 we brought back from over there. We bought those lines from them.
Yeah, and those were 3-point bale carriers.
Right.
Yep.
And of course we changed them because they just had all the square frame and different tubes, and we made that wrap around, make it simplify it, make it prettier, more ergonomic, and well, we used to build the hell out of them.
Oh yes, yeah.
Who was it? TSC. We used to buy them by the truckload.
Mm-hmm.
You stack them right, you get about 65 of them in a truck.
Okay. Well, the dip tank I always remembered because I always got in trouble with that round bale feeder dip tank. My sister and I would play up there, and no matter what we did, we'd always get covered in paint. And I know Dad tanned both of our hides more than once because of that. So, but I remember there was a story, and you told me it's been years ago. But Dad was going to a show, or he was delivering equipment down to Missouri to some of the wheat belt stores, and things were running late. And you guys, when you put the round bale feeders on the trailer, they were still dripping paint.
Yeah, we've done that a couple of times. Probably the wildest story about the bale bunks, as we call them. We had a guy out there dipping the darn things, and of course we had a new operator on the forming of the rails or the tubes, inch and a quarter square tubes, and you made them into a 120 arc. And anyway, the first few on this run were not very accurate. They were a little off. So we welded the darn things up, and they got them all painted. And of course, the bottom ones were not bent near enough, and the top ones were bent more. And just they didn't fit up really well at all. So the guy that was doing the painting, he gets up on top of the stack, and he steps down on them to smash them down so we can put a band on them so that they didn't look so bad. And as soon as he stepped down on them, he got his fingers caught underneath there and he couldn't get away.
No.
His weight was on the bottom rail and his fingers were caught up high. He couldn't get away. We could have shipped him away right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were fun to build when everything were right.
Mm-hmm.
But when the skirted bunks, they were fun. They were what is it, 14 gauge skirts that got welded in there on those tubes. That was fun.
Yeah.
You had to know what you were doing on those.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, in the old days and even today, as we've built buildings and expanded, we've always had monetary constraints. So every building's been added on to 2 or 3 times. One building's been 4 times. And it's always been hard for us to get product over 10 feet long through the shop. But in the 90s, you were instrumental with getting Worksaver building the Terramaxes, and then we made 3-point stacker bars for a few years. And what challenges and how did you overcome them with the longer product going through this facility?
The biggest challenge was being able to roll them in welding without having to flip them on a table or flip them on the floor and then put them back on the table. So your dad and I got busy and we developed these rollover fixtures that we still use today on grapples. Just the different attachments on the heads to get it accomplished. We would put up to, I think the biggest Terramax we ever did was a 24-foot Terramax 2 that went to Beaver Valley. We actually rolled them over on 2 of those rollover fixtures. And that's how we ran them through the shop. That way you could take them through lengthwise and run them into the paint booth, paint them. They could dry while they're still on the racks, and then they would assemble them and take them out the back door. But
well, I remember we used to assemble them outside when the weather was nice.
oh, when the weather was nice, you bet. That was the best place to work.
Yeah.
But I can remember taking that 24-footer that we built for Beaver Valley, went out to Colorado. We took it up to the elevator because we had no idea how much this sucker was going to weigh. And as we were going up the road, because the road was so rough, this thing was doing this, going down the road. It looked like it was going to fly.
Yeah, we had a Blue Jet caddy on it, right? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, oh my God, that was a challenge. Had 2 people up the road blocking the traffic so we could even get to the elevators and we'd weigh it. And I don't remember what it weighed, but I want to say it was about 8,000 pounds with all the shanks and all the attachments, the roller and everything on it. It was heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a challenge. And the stacker bars, I liked welding them. I liked building them. But I hated the fact that we had no good way of keeping the pins in line. And anyway, first fixture we built, back then Ross Coberline was with us, of course. And I kept telling him, I said, you got to be able to get them hinges in line, or whenever you fold it up, it's going to, look like it's got an issue. But anyway, that was a big deal. I mean, we fought and fought and fought, and finally, I think I can't remember where your dad got it, but he bought a big enough machine that we could lay them arms down on it after they were welded and line bore it.
Yeah, that was a horizontal boring machine.
Yeah.
The old blue one. It used to be across the street.
Yeah, I can't remember where he bought that thing at, but boy, that paid off. Dividends.
I want to say he got it up in Chicago at an auction because I went with him and I was a kid. I don't know, probably 12, 13 years old, and we went and picked it up on a gooseneck and brought it back. I do remember that trip.
Yeah, but it made a big difference on because we could weld up the hinges then and let them cool. And then we take it over and line bore them, and then we could add the arm to the hinge. Add it to that sub weldment. Made it so much easier to build. Big difference. Wasn't a bad product.
Yeah.
Once we got the bugs worked out.
Sure. I appreciate that. And in the early days of doing the Terramaxes, you also kind of put a salesman hat on too and helped with some demonstrations, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Probably the first demo I did was down in Valdosta at the Sunbelt Ag Expo. I went down there with Elmo and Chuck and your dad, and I did the field demos with a 15-foot Terramax 2.
Yeah.
And they bet me I couldn't go 18 inches deep, but I proved them wrong.
Of course, back then, having a tractor big enough to handle that subsoiler.
Absolutely, that was a big deal. But anyway, I took this one guy says, if you can go 18 inches deep, I'll buy it on the spot. Get the cab. Off on the back side of the field demos, we went, got back in there. He says, what are you doing? I said, well, I don't want nobody to see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I sunk it right in their field road and just got total fracture all the way across that machine in the field road.
Yeah.
And he got out there with a potentiometer. He says, sold, I want it. Drove me back up to the booth.
Yeah.
Chuck asked me, he said, what'd you do? I said, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then after we did the regular units for a while, then we went into the sugarcane units.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad, Dwayne Winier, and I went down to South Texas.
And this is working with whites, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was back when Whites was big with us. And we went down to Weslaco, Texas, right up the road from Harlingen, and worked with a farmer by the name of Trey Bell. And got out there in his field, and we got this machine going, had the big old basket roller on the back. And man, I tell you what, you work underneath one of them machines for a few hours, you are black. That stuff is some black clay down there. But we worked with that thing down there for about 2 days, 3 days. I can't remember now. Been too long ago. But got the adjustments made, got everything set up to where it would work well. And there for a while, I mean, sugarcane units sold well.
Mm-hmm.
Florida and Texas primarily. But I mean, the change in the farming practices and just kind of took care of it. No-till came about right about then and just killed the Terramax.
Well, with the cost of fuel, every farmer is trying to figure, how do I get a crop with the least amount of input per acre? And deep tillage is not on their list of things to do anymore.
Absolutely not. Even with the roller package on the back to where it's saved on the erosion and everything, and they still couldn't fight it.
Yeah.
Government controlled that.
Yeah, well, and now that we have a GPS and strip till, and they're putting the tillage and the fertilizer and the seed exactly in the same spot where they need to, it's kind of eliminated need for some of that.
Absolutely, but you can still drive around the countryside and see one of them here and there. I know where one's down by Mount Olive right now.
Yeah, there's an old boy right on the left or the west side of the interstate north of Raymond. He's got an old Terramax sitting there. Yeah. So, oh, good deal. So what are some other funny stories that come to mind when you think back over your career?
Oh, boy. There have been a lot of them. Some of them I'd just as soon not say on film.
Yeah.
Probably the meanest thing I ever did as an individual was had a young man go look for a 2x4 stretcher. He searched for about 3 hours trying to find that thing. But then the supervisor found out what I did and he chewed my butt. But it was fun at the moment.
Yeah.
I can remember doing so many crazy things. We used to sandblast right out here in front of the welding shop. Had sand everywhere. That's when we did the big C plows and B plows. And I can remember a guy by the name of Randy Hemken out there working, and he was assembling after we sandblasted and painted this big C frame. You couldn't get enough weight on it to get it to sink all them units into the ground. So we would shove that thing full of punch slugs and shot and sand, used sand. So we'd spend 4 or 5 hours out there filling up a 16-foot frame with all this malarkey just to give it some weight, and then weld the caps on the end.
Okay.
That was one of the dumbest things we ever did. I can remember.
Well, same concept. When we first started building the heavy-duty post hole diggers, you guys
where I was
loaded
going.
them. Yeah, I remember that. The sand pile out in the parking lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we put 8 or 10 booms in there like this in a tub, and then send the guy out there, and he would fill them full of sand and bring them back in and weld the caps on them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, heavier pipe.
Yeah. Labor's a little cheaper back then too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I told you a while ago how cheap it was back then.
Yeah.
But I mean, probably the craziest thing I ever seen was the paint booth right straight down in the nose of this building, right next to the welding area. And there's not much ventilation in this building. Never was. Had that, oh, I forget how big that fan was, 24-inch fan in the booth going out the roof. And anyway, we decided we're going to move the paint booth finally, which was a good move. Get it the hell out of here, but we went into into the shipping building with it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when it was in there?
Yep.
And as we were trying to lower the shroud off the side of the building, of course we didn't have big forklifts back then, we just had whatever you had. We tied a rope around this thing, went to let it over the side of the building, and just as it went off the side of the building, the rope broke.
Jeez.
Down it went, smack, and bounced and went into pieces. And Jim Hampton, the big old boy that was up on top, he looks at me and says, "You gonna tell him?" Well, somebody's gonna have to. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, labor was cheap, like you said, and we did everything down a dirty way.
Yeah.
Because there just was no other way at the time. We used to hand lift all this product in the welding area. Now we've got cranes. Not only does technology help, but saved a lot of back injuries with putting cranes over everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a much better place to work now.
Yeah. Well, I know over the years, we've had two kinds of machines here, those that are being moved and those that will be moved.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I remember that I always thought was just awesome when I was a kid is we had an old Bliss. Mm-hmm. And anyway, it had gears on it that to me looked like 12 feet across, but I was a little kid. Yeah. They were probably, what, 7, 8?
Well, the one was 7 and the other was 6.
Okay. And anyway, we used to make rolling fenders off of that, if my memory's correct. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we
punched the top link gears for the hay equipment also.
Okay. But we finally outgrew, and it was time for that machine to move. And was the building built around that machine? Is that how they got it in there?
Well, well, that machine was actually here when I started.
Oh, okay.
So I can't answer that. But where the Bliss sat, there was a shear across on the other side of the building. Of course, that went away long before the Bliss. And then we had another machine right across the aisle from the Bliss. You'd punch out the rolling fenders here, and this one formed them. And on the back of that machine, and I can't remember if it was another Bliss or what, but you take a 18-inch piece of, 12, 13 gauge, and try to form it and put the creases in all the fingers of that rolling fender, took a lot of tonnage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back in those days, there was no hydraulics. It was all mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
So this machine had a great big counterweight on the back of it, about 3 foot in diameter. I think it was held on by 2 bolts. The guy hit the lever and had it to come down to press that rolling fender, and those 2 bolts snapped. And when that thing hit the floor, I think everybody in the building ran because it shook the whole building. But so rolling fenders went away, and we had the IATA that we would start pressing the top link gears on. So the Bliss one was going to go away. And as we were tearing this thing down, you probably know where I'm going with this.
Oh, I remember. I was here for part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys had to get a carbon
arc. 4 big connecting rods.
Yeah.
The 5-inch connecting rods run top to bottom on this machine. So we rented what they call an arc slicer. Mm-hmm. And myself and God, who was the other guy?
Well, Tommy Lucia helped, I know.
I think it was Tommy, yeah.
Yeah.
I would cut for a while and then back up, and then Tommy would cut for a while because, it was hard on you. It was very bright, and the smoke that come off of it was pretty rough. So anyway, we finally got all 4 of these connecting rods cut. And your dad's across the aisle with the old Ford 7000.
7000,
if I
yep.
remember correctly.
Yep.
And we have this thing tied off to the back of the tractor. We've got a crib of skids and blocks and everything.
Wasn't it railroad ties?
Well, there was railroad ties on the bottom, but
yeah,
so that this thing would have something to land on and not bust up the concrete. So basically what we caused, when the top tipped over and landed on the skids, we caused the bottom to go down lower, and the top 2 connecting rods shot out of that thing like a cannon. One went underneath the tractor and one went right beside the tractor to the left, and your dad's eyes got this big. And he's sitting there on the tractor and he's looking and he looks at that one underneath the tractor. He says, I gotta go wipe.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember that.
Oh God, I mean, his eyes, I swear to God, were as big as a Coke bottle. I said, Tom, you're damn lucky you weren't over 4 foot. If you're over 4 foot, them connecting rods would have hit the tires, and God knows what would happen to that tractor.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was an interesting adventure getting that blessed over.
No. Another story that comes to mind that I thought was pretty interesting was in 2004 we started building rear blades for Frontier, and we didn't have a press to do some of the unipunch stamping that we wanted done, so we bought a 400-ton Pacific, and it came in on 3 semis, and we had to assemble it outside and then use the big 50-ton truck crane to gently nurse it inside, and then we put it on machinery rollers and moved it.
And then we found out it was out of 2 different machines.
Yep.
They messed up the shipment. But we made it work, got it all put together. Rudy and I made that big old die for forming the moldboards all in one shot.
Yeah.
That was fun, making that big old top and bottom of that die. Otherwise, we've been there for, I think we figured 12 hits on the press brake to get it to form. And we built that die and it would come down in that 400 ton and form it all, except for the 110 back bend in one shot. So,
But do you remember when we were putting that press together outside and the 50-ton truck crane's holding the center piece up and here comes a lightning storm? Remember that day? We were shitting and getting pretty quick.
damn straight. It wasn't much fun.
We got 2 bolts in and we got the crane down and said, leave it till the storm was done. Yeah.
Wait. But yeah, it's been an interesting 5 decades.
Yeah. You know, something that always special to me is, you know, I've been around here since I was old enough to walk, and as I got older, got into my teenage years, you and the other supervisors would start to teach me some of the trades, and always definitely appreciated that and learned a lot from you and the other guys over the years.
Yeah, and there's another story that you probably don't want to even talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and say it.
It can be edited.
When you were little, I'm going to say you were probably 8, 9 years old. You had gotten in trouble for breaking a window. So your punishment was to come out here and clean all the lights. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So you're up on a ladder and you're cleaning the lights, and it was hotter than the hubs of hell. You were sweating. You had all that black shot, them lights all over you. And I mean, it was just running down your face and down the front of you and everything. And I told you, to get down from there for a while before you have a damn heat stroke. So you get down and you're sitting on the bottom rung of the ladder. Here comes your dad. Get your butt. I said, damn it, I told you to get down there before you have a heat stroke. You get down, your dad sent you back up.
Yeah.
That happened like 2 or 3 times. Finally, I said to your dad, come here, we need to have a talk.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill him. You may want to, but I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some good stories, been good times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've had some trying times too. You know, the worst one that I can remember, the last one was 2009, after the whole economy went through a recession, and we had to disband the night shift and take the day shift down to 32 hours, and we did that for about 6 months.
Right.
That was pretty lean times.
It was, but it wasn't the leanest I ever saw. I mean, I can remember 81, I think it was. Yeah, 1981. We got down to just one shift, and we were working 4 days a week, and there was only 11 people left in there.
Yeah.
11 people. I mean, that was scary. I really thought, well, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah, the first 4 years that Dad was here, it was challenging, but you guys got through it. And
well, yeah, we just kept plugging, and things worked out. I mean, we, as your dad always said, don't work harder, work smarter.
Mm-hmm.
So we started doing that. We started working smarter and making things easier, like the punching all the holes at once in a moldboard instead of drilling them one at a time and stuff like that. And it turned around. I mean, it was a pretty amazing challenge, but we did it.
Well, I tell you something that, 11 years now I've been leading the sales with Kevin and Brad here, and something that I have a lot of pride going around and telling customers and our distributors and our dealers is that our warranty is next to nothing. It's so low because of the hard work you and your team have done over the years, improving our processes, making sure things are right, checking them, checking your work. Imagine that. Yeah. And anyway, Larry, it's been a great ride, and you have definitely helped build this company into what it is today. And I hope we can take the reins from where you leave it and continue to grow and improve. And
I hope so.
hope you keep coming back and visiting with
I
us.
hope so. And like I've told your dad before, I said, my name may not be on the place, but by God, I feel like it. Feel like an owner. I mean, because that's the kind of work ethic I've tried to put forth in this place, and I think it can be seen with a lot of the people that came up underneath me.
Yeah, no, we have an excellent crew of people here, and anyway, it's a pleasure working with everybody. So,
Absolutely.
well, Larry, appreciate your time today, and please come by and stop and make fun of us every now and then. Tell us about what you're killing out there, whether it be a turkey or a dove, or
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, anyway, greatly appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.